Let's do it. Let's get this in one take. This is not one take. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for passion, no last necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA podcast. Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. We made it. I made it, and I am so grateful. This season has been interesting. I feel like every season has come with like some kind of craziness that really threw me off, but I'm grateful that I've been able to rebound. 16 episodes this season and 60 since we started. 60. From somebody who stumbled into this blindly and unknowing, I'd say that that's quite the accomplishment. But they say that God doesn't choose the qualified, right? That's what we talked about in episode 1 with that manager that kept stressing how I qualified for the position, but I wasn't chosen for it. God qualifies the chosen, right? And with a lot of effort and a lot more effort, because I'm not even about to act like this is a small feat, okay? This was a huge undertaking. Somehow we still were able to get here. So thank you to all 300 plus subscribers, 700 more, and then we'll be at 1,000. And I know that sounds crazy and it sounds so far away, but I'm really proud because our subscriber count is completely organic. When we got started, Ghost petitioned some folks to help me get to my first 100. And then we've been steady climbing from there. So thank you to everyone who tunes in week after week, everyone who comments, who hits the thumbs up button, who shares. This is how we grow, friends. So, okay. Even though last week was the season finale, I wanted to just hop in and do a quick season wrap up. I didn't do my usual season in review tie-in that I've done at the close of every season, for one, because I had some episodes that were holding, so I decided to just release those. And for two, the episode with Bree, while it was unexpected, it was necessary. And I should say it was that specific episode that was unexpected because it's been on the board to do an episode with her for a while, but our schedules didn't allow for it. So you will see Bree again, and actually sooner than you think. And we're still going to do the episode that we've been wanting to do, but we ain't there yet. For 3A, because that's a two-parter, extending season 3 past the ending date took a lot out of me and a lot away from other things that required my attention. So I just decided to stick to the scheduled season closing date. And 3B, even though there were season hiccups and 2 weeks were missed, it was imperative that the season end on time because we're launching a new show. Yay! So what does that mean for the podcast? It means we going on the same summer break we would have been going on, but you'll still have something to watch in the meantime. So the podcast will return in September as it has the last 2 Septembers. It is wild to me to even be saying the last 2 Septembers. It is wild to me how time is flying. But by the time the new season starts, a decision will be made if a third show will be added to the network this year or next. The specifics are still being worked out. And there are a few other things in the works behind the scenes. So in the meantime, go catch up on all the episodes you missed. Go all the way back to season 1 and tell your friends to watch them too. For this season, we started talking about how things aren't always what they seem. We talked about how it looks like a super flex to have an Amex, especially a platinum card, but there's the other side of it too. There's the responsibility of being able to maintain it. Charge cards and credit cards are 2 different animals with 2 different bites. But to the point of things not always being what they seem, I recently came full circle in that space. I had to have an uncomfortable conversation very recently where a chapter had to close because what it appeared to be and what it was 2 different things. And that was on both sides, right? My actions were perceived differently than the intentions behind them, and the actions toward and around me were perceived differently than the intended delivery and messaging. Things aren't always what they seem. So don't get caught up in appearances. Your eyes will fool you without all of the context. And while that wasn't the full context of that particular episode, the point of each of these is not only to provide you with something for like specific situations, but tools you can use across the board. But the choice is yours. The decisions we make now will be relevant for the rest of our lives, as discussed in episodes 2 and 3. And while many of us are callous about the poor decisions we make because we have or take the liberty to call said poor choices and decisions mistakes. Call your moves what you want, but don't blame life and age and everything and everyone down the line when you have to live out the sum total of said decisions. And if the decisions you're making in life, in love, in business, if they are faulty and you need someone to help you later on, they're under no obligation to help you or to want to help you. They're under no obligation to make your emergency their urgency, because making good long-term decisions wasn't a priority when you had the chance and the choice. So if there are changes you need to make, now's a great time to start. Better to do all you can to correct what you can, when you can, and while you can, because when others have to get involved, they also have the right to opine, and their opinions may not be any you want to hear. So make sure you show up for yourself like we talked about in episode 4. A lot of us aren't showing up for ourselves or making good decisions for our own lives because of all the other people we have to be accountable to and responsible for. Not eating well because we're trying to meet benchmarks at work. Not sleeping enough because we have to be 1,000 places for 1,000 people. Subjecting ourselves to toxic products and toxic environments because we're in the minority on the vote. Show up for yourself because you're important to you, and not just because people don't treat you like you're very important to them. Show up for yourself because it will change the results that you get. Like if you're getting good results now, doing the bare minimum, imagine how much better the results would be if you were doing that much more. Showing up for yourself sets the tone for how others should show up for you and how you can show up for others. In 2 separate episodes, episode 5 with Garrick and episode 15 with Lee, we talked about showing up for yourself professionally by cleaning up your resume, doing extensive research when applying for positions, coming to the interview prepared to not only answer questions about yourself and, given this scenario, what would you do, but prepared to ask questions about the interviewer and the company. Dress the part, negotiate wages, negotiate benefits. Before even applying, decide exactly what you want and only apply for that. Decide your non-negotiables. Garrick suggested that you read Who Gets Promoted, Who Doesn't, and Why. And Lee ebook, 6 Steps to 6 Figures, is a step-by-step how-to guide to go from struggle income to 6-figure earner. Now, if you think money is your biggest hurdle, and it probably isn't, but you'll see that on the other side of the money that you desire. But if you think money is your biggest hurdle, utilizing all the tools they offered is a phenomenal way to make a better decision now with long-term benefits and show up for yourself. Now, if you're at the place where you realize that you're probably more reactive than responsive, you can show up for yourself by removing yourself when you're triggered, be it from the conversation, from the environment, or the relationship, and be honest about why you're removing yourself. People may not always appear receptive to what you're saying, but things aren't always as they seem. Give yourself the necessary space. Give them the clarity of why you're moving the way you are, and in that, give them the room to process what they're hearing, seeing, and feeling like you're doing for yourself. Because otherwise, you could run into being called a hypocrite, or worse, being exposed as a fraud, which is what happened in episode 6, right? For wanting what you're not willing to give. Life requires giving in order to receive. It also requires giving some things up in order to go to the next level. Old habits, old haunts, favorite foods, even favorite friends. Sometimes you have to let go to go forward. The sooner you decide what you're willing to give up is the sooner you take the next step towards your greatness. We covered that in episode 7. And if the question is, well, how do I know if I'm ready, or how do I know when I'm ready? The answer, which was embedded in the episode within the documentary, is you're ready when you stop asking how you know you're ready and you forge ahead scared, uncertain, when you keep going, when everything appears to be working against you, when you feel like you're getting no results, but you don't give up, sometimes you don't actually know you're ready until you're halfway through it and you realize how far you've come. Sometimes you find out you're ready when things come to a screeching halt and you realize how bad that is, or it could have been. And instead of quitting and giving up, you pick up where you are and you keep going. Pro tip, one of the best ways to keep going is to take a moment for honest review and do an itemized assessment. These were the things I did right. These are the places I dropped the ball. Going through the lived experience, that's going to take an undisclosed amount of time. But you can summarize it in a few pages after it's all said and done to highlight the pros, the cons, and the beyonds. That's what we did in the AWOL Welcome Back episode, right? I told you how we ended up a few weeks behind, where it was the technology that failed, where it was me failing from procrastination and putting things off, not capitalizing on opportunities to acquire skills, overcommitting. If you're not watchful over what you're doing, things can go kablooey pow pow, and it's usually at the worst possible time. But that's okay, because we can always bounce back. But sometimes bouncing back requires you to tap in with source so you can get clear direction. And sometimes we don't like those directions, but that doesn't mean our prayers haven't been answered. We covered answered prayers in 10 and 11. Sometimes the very thing we're going through that has us feeling miserable is the manifestation of a prayer we prayed or words we spoke over our lives and forgot all about. When we're experiencing those euphoric moments of, I prayed for this and this is all I ever wanted, we often wonder, like, what took so long? Becoming. Sometimes it's us that has to become different. Other times it's the people around us who have to become different. More receptive, more financially sound, more humble, more bold. Evolution is a process, but everything is on time, even if it's not on your time. I said something right there, so I hope you were listening. And while evolution and change and giving up the familiar can be scary and overwhelming, it is requisite if we don't want to get left behind, like we talked about in episode 12. I'd say this season reinforced for me being at peace, being left behind, because I wasn't ready when everyone else was. And it also reinforced that it's okay for me to leave others if they're not ready. We can always try to catch up, or we can see if there are other places for us to connect down the line. Gratitude for new days and new opportunities. Gratitude over, above, and beyond everything, like we discussed in episode 14. Even in the worst of circumstances, where we can find and justify every reason to complain. Like when that lunatic tried to spit on us, when we talked about it in episode 13, gratitude not only that the other person didn't do us more harm, but that cooler heads prevailed and we were able to enjoy all of the things that we would have had to forfeit if things had gone any more left on either side. Dude assumed that we were throwing some hate in his direction, which could not have been further from the case because neither one of us was thinking about him. But I would never give him the satisfaction or the empowerment of calling him a hater. Now, hate-filled and miserable, maybe. But whatever demons that he's wrestling with, whatever demons anyone else is wrestling with, those are their demons alone, okay? I will not give them the honor of a title. As we discussed in our finale episode, haters are canceled. We only celebrate supporters. I know you're probably wondering what this new show is about. It's not another podcast. In 2019, one of my friends and I embarked on this journey to do a restaurant review show. We started off pretty strong, but I didn't know anything. I tell y'all all the time, I didn't know anything about video editing, and trying to edit on a phone that didn't have enough space. Let's call it a fail and leave it at that. Okay. Between the editing going kablooey pow pow and our schedules not aligning, that show halted pretty quickly. By accident, it was reignited with a different co-host and a completely different angle. So we're not wasting any time with rolling that out. The season premiere will be June 14th. Are you excited? Because I am. There is going to be a lot of information and a boatload of laughs. So I really hope that you're ready. That's it, Passionates. It has been a time, but it was a time well spent. Okay? Questions, comments, the works, all of it can be left in the comments section. Going forward, Listener letters can be sent to greetings@whatonewomandoes.com. You can share any and every episode as many times as you like with as many people as you'd like. I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, favorite, download episodes. If you want to be a financial contributor, you can make donations via Podbean, Linktree, PayPal, or Zelle. Every investment into this group therapy, group counseling, life coaching space is as much an investment into yourself as it is into this pod. Y'all, I am gone. Y'all go forth, be great, be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge. Go rewatch the season and catch all the gems you missed. Set a reminder for the new show, which is airing next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. That's 9 p.m. Eastern. In all things, be passionate. See you in September. See you later.